There was the J.D. Vance tweet. If a judge tried to tell a general how to conduct a military operation, that would be illegal. If a judge tried to command the attorney general in how to use her discretion as a prosecutor, that's also illegal. Judges aren't allowed to control the executive's legitimate power. Trump followed up a few days later with a possibly apocryphal Napoleon Bonaparte quote, he who saves his country does not violate the law, which I think many other people read as, if I'm doing the right thing for America, the law doesn't, I'm not breaking the law. Like, how do you read statements and sentiments like this coming from the Trump administration?
Well, I have a number of reactions. First of all, I think the biggest gift that was given to President Trump during his first term is when he got banned from Twitter.
Mhm.
And so that I think taking the Twitter away from Trump was actually really good for the president back then. And this we're seeing actually way fewer instances of this than we used to see, which suggests that his head is in a much better place than it used to be. But sure, there are these statements. Some of them I agree with. I don't think there's anything particularly wrong with the vice president's statement. Have you listened to the speech that the two speeches that the vice president gave to Europe
I
over the
have,
last
yes.
week or so?
Yes,
I mean, these are
and
stunningly good speeches
I
that
agree.
that libertarians should be hailing. But
We
I'm going to
did
be a
hail
little
them.
critical of
We have a currently unreleased, but probably to be released soon episode breaking down a lot of Vance's rhetoric on AI and contrasting that with Kamala Harris's statements about AI, sort of this like safetyist rhetoric from a few years ago. And like that, Vance's thinking on tech policy, maybe not stuff related to antitrust, but certainly related to AI innovation is something that I think we're really excited about. But still, like he's right
I'm
half the
really
time
glad
he's
to hear
going.
that. But let me just make a comment about the
Mhm.
libertarian movement. Again, in my book, A Life for Liberty, I talk about how I first became involved in the libertarian movement back when I was in college, when I taught a course on libertarianism at Northwestern when I was a senior in college, when I was a first-year law student. I met Murray Rothbard during the fall semester of my first year of law school and ended up in his living room debating hypothetical questions with him that my torts professors had been tormenting myself and my friend about. Um, so I go way back in the libertarian movement. But let me just say, there is a general tendency amongst many libertarians, not all, but many libertarians, especially those in sort of the intellectual wing of the libertarian movement, to be somewhat tolerant and forgiving of sins that are being committed by Democrats, whether they be liberals or left of liberals, and say, well, okay, I don't like that. But on the other hand, but when something is committed by a Republican or a conservative, that's the end of the world. That's the beginning of authoritarianism. They have they have knees that jerk, and their knees that jerk towards the left. It is
Mm.
just a
Mhm.
cultural phenomenon that exists in the modern libertarian movement. I don't quite understand it. I think maybe it's because dating back to what I felt like when I was younger than you, and that is I had made a break myself from the conservative movement and wanted to make sure that nobody confused me with a conservative, and so that I would be very, very adamant about that. I also think there's a bit of social approval that
Mhm.
libertarians seek from the sort of the opinion makers, the intellectual opinion makers of the day, and they are primarily on the left. I've also seen that in the libertarian movement. There's some pathologies within the libertarian movement that we should be aware of. And I think right now, those pathologies are being put to the test by a president who went to the Libertarian Party National Convention, asked for the votes of the libertarians who were there. That's never happened in my lifetime before. And then what he told the libertarians there was that if I wasn't a libertarian before the state came after me, I am a libertarian now. Now, I am under no illusions that Trump is a libertarian, but this is up till now the most libertarian presidency that we've ever seen. My good
Mm.
friend Glenn Reynolds at the University of Tennessee, who is Instapundit online, has a great Substack in which he defends, and he's a libertarian, Glenn is a libertarian, defends Trump as a libertarian president or the most libertarian president we've seen. I think we as libertarians need to take yes for an answer when we finally have a politician who's willing to go after the state. The state is the people that we need to keep in our focus, and the state is somebody that needs to be brought to heel. It has not been brought to heel, and maybe, just maybe, it's being brought to heel now.
I have a slightly I agree with some of what you're saying, but I have a slightly different worry, which is that libertarians have become a little too blind to the threats of the authoritarian right because we've grown accustomed to resisting the overreach of the progressive left that was in power through the Biden administration and Obama administration and the whole COVID debacle, and that we might be missing a threat. And in my mind, it is the kind of it's the national conservatism that someone like Vance represents. I mean, this is a guy who is on the record as saying that he thinks Trump should do what Andrew Jackson did and just ignore Supreme Court rulings. That it kind of seems like it's possibly building up to something like that. Like the groundwork is being laid a little bit to just say we don't have to listen to rulings that we don't like. Am I being overly paranoid here?
Yes, you are.
Okay. Hmm.
Um,
I,
First of all, I just don't think it describes libertarians accurately to say that they've been over concerned with the left and under concerned with the right. That is not what I've observed for the last several decades. Not at all. But we don't have to agree about that.
mhm,
We do. Here's the way I approached the first Trump administration, and which was one of the better Republican administrations in my lifetime, with this administration, which is, I think, going to be the best administration in my lifetime. And that is,
mm,
I look at what they do and not what they say. And we have to be more concerned with what they do and not with what they say. I'm not going to agree with everything they say. I'm not going to agree with everything they do. I heard a really good line on, I think this may have been a Greg Gutfeld line, although I don't listen to him. I think I saw it on Twitter. And that is that you don't have to like everything on the menu to think the restaurant is a good restaurant and like the restaurant. I think we have to be very careful about making the perfect the enemy of the good. I don't disagree with you. I myself have published articles criticizing national conservatism. I don't disagree with you about that. I don't think that's a meaningful threat at this point. I don't think this administration is doing any of that stuff. I'm not saying they won't ever do anything like that, but that's not
mhm.
what they're doing now. That's not what's getting everybody's underwear in a twist right now. And I would just keep my if that's what you're concerned about, Zach, I'd keep my powder dry until you see something that actually represents that kind of threat, as opposed to what we're now seeing, which is trying to expose what the federal government has been up to and doing throughout our whole lifetimes and the corrupt way in which they're funding millions and billions of dollars to left-wing political activists, which is distorting the political system that we exist in today, distorting the political marketplace in ways that we have no idea about, but we may find out about if that money dries up.
I mean, there is a federal judge who is claiming now that aspects of the court order implementing, sort of reversing the spending freeze, are being ignored. And there's also this question of impoundment. Can Trump's budget director, actually withhold funds authorized by Congress? Are those types of things, when you say, look at what they do, not what they say, are those potential warning signs to be concerned about? Or is that
I'm not
all kind of
interested.
within? Yeah.
I'm really not that interested in warning signs. I'm interested in things they do. I'm also not going to accept as true everything that every district court judge might say about things, much
Yeah.
less the plaintiffs who bring complaints to them, whether those are all truthful as well. These things have to be adjudicated at many different levels. Everything every judge says is not necessarily correct, but also the judiciary has to be aware of its limitations. And one of the
Mhm.
things that historically has made it aware of its limitations is the idea that it cannot enforce its own decrees, that it requires the executive branch in order to put some force behind a judicial order. Um, Judges have always been conscious of this. They need to remain conscious of this. I am a very strong proponent of judicial review. I'm a very strong proponent of what's called judicial engagement, in which judges are more skeptical about government than judicial conservatives want them to be. At the same time, I do think judges need to be able to understand what their proper role is in adjudicating individual disputes and not administering other branches of government. And I think that's actually what the vice president was talking about in the
Mm.
tweet that you put up on the screen earlier.
Hey, that was a clip from Just Asking Questions. You can watch another one here or the full episode here. And please subscribe to our brand new channel to get us started off right and be notified when new episodes or clips go up. Thanks for watching.